I'm Elizabeth Holmes. I'm the founder and CEO of Theranos. Our work is in being able to realize a healthcare paradigm around early detection, prevention, and consumer empowerment, and in making it possible to do laboratory testing in a highly accessible way, which means tiny samples instead of big tubes of blood from your arm and incredibly low prices.
What you just watched was a clip of Elizabeth Holmes, the CEO and founder of Theranos, from 2015. This is from the Obama White House YouTube page. In the description below the video, it says that she was there to speak about her signature initiative in empowering women in science, technology, and math, as well as working on breakthroughs in global health. It sounds nice, doesn't it? Well, it turns out that it was all a scam. A jury found that Elizabeth Holmes was guilty this week on 4 counts of fraud-related charges. And it turns out that the Theranos blood tests couldn't really detect a variety of ailments and diseases with just a few drops of blood. Yet over the years, she continued to dupe investors.
Holmes rose to Silicon Valley fame after founding Theranos, a blood testing startup, in 2003. Prosecutors say she swindled investors over the next decade, including media mogul Rupert Murdoch, on claims that the company's small machines could run a range of tests with just a few drops of blood. Investigations by the Wall Street Journal later debunked these claims, and Holmes was indicted in 2018 alongside former Theranos COO Sunny Balwani. On Monday, she was acquitted on 3 counts of defrauding patients who paid for tests from Theranos and a related conspiracy charge, while the jury could not reach a decision on 3 other counts related to individual investors. Testifying in her own defense at trial, Holmes had said she had never meant to deceive anyone and that the company's lab directors were in charge of test quality. She was also charged with misleading patients about the test's accuracy, but was acquitted of those charges.
Now, her sentencing date has not been set, and she remains free on bond at the moment, but she could be facing many years behind bars. Joining me now is criminal defense attorney and anchor at Law and Crime Network, Bob Bianchi. Bob, this is just an insane case. I'm sure you followed the trial pretty closely. That being said, her attorney said that failure is not a crime. Trying your hardest and coming up short is not a crime. I mean, but if you look at the facts here, I mean, not only did she take away from investors, but also the consumers who were using this machine.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they try to portray it, Stephanie. And she took the witness stand in this particular case and obviously did not convince this jury of the idea that failure and mistakes. And that was where the defense was trying to position it, as opposed to the prosecution, who laid out a pretty clear case that this wasn't about failure and mistakes. It was about the fear of her failing and then creating a fraud. She was going to have a really difficult time getting around things. The one that was most impactful to me is where she's actually cutting out the names and labels of other pharmaceutical companies and then sending it out to potential investors saying, look at the support I have, when those companies never gave her that support. In fact, to the contrary. So she had a really tough road to hoe here. And I know a lot of people, Stephanie, are also talking about appeals in this issue. But the fact is that the court that looks at this on appeal, it's not a do-over. They're going to see whether or not this jury was a runaway jury. And interestingly, the jury was very measured here. They found her guilty of some counts as it related to the investors, which, Stephanie, you got to love it. She is an equal opportunity bipartisan offender. There were Major League Democrats, Major League Republicans who all were taken under the Svengali control of this woman and invested a lot of money with her based upon these frauds. However, the jury did not come back with guilty verdicts with respect to defrauding patients. So what that was going to say to an appellate court is that this jury was very keenly and microscopically and surgically looking at the evidence and were able to say guilty and not guilty. So it was a well-reasoned decision by the jury.
Yeah, and just to be a little more specific, the jury found her guilty of only 4 of the 11 charges. And so, as you're saying, this could make it difficult for an appeal, but she's a narcissist, and obviously the attorneys are probably going to move forward with that if they can.
Yeah, well, you know, listen, yes, yes, and yes. And one last really important yes is when you're sitting in the Bureau of Prisons in a federal detention facility for a significant period of time, which could be a decade or more, you have all the time in the world to file what they call 2255 motions saying ineffective assistance of counsel and my rights were violated. Because other than that, it's rec time, your jail cell, and why not go to the law library, Stephanie?
Yeah, and also there's still a long road ahead. So she continues to say that she purposefully didn't deceive anyone, and then she's blaming her ex-boyfriend who was involved with this. And they're wondering if he's also found guilty of fraud, if this could be a potential to lessen her jail time.
Yeah, you know, she's damaged goods. This gets asked this question a lot. As a former prosecutor, you know, the time to get to the prosecutors in order to cut yourself a break is in the beginning of the case. That's number one, because cross-examination of her is obviously going to be brutal if she testifies for the government, because the defense for him is going to say, well, of course you're going to testify negatively against him because you're facing 10 and 20 years in federal prison. So as a witness, she's been gutted because she didn't take the deal earlier. And secondly, prosecutors don't like to give a deal after you've been found guilty because that incentivizes future defendants to kind of hold out, wait, go to trial, see if you get convicted. And if you do, then you're going to have a second bite at the apple with the prosecutors for a favorable determination. Prosecutors don't like it. No bueno for them. I don't see her cutting a deal with the prosecutors at all.
Yeah. And then what about the consumers? If you go back and read some of these stories of the people who use this machine, there was false HIV results, false miscarriage results, cancer diagnosis when the person didn't have cancer. And so a lot of people were freaking out and rearranging their lives according to the results from this test. I mean, what about them?
Yeah, this is a harder question to ask, and part of that reason is because in federal courts we're still dealing with the arcane idea that we can have cameras, you know, in the courtroom. So we have to rely upon the reporting of individuals. So I kind of look at them in the bucket of the jury did not come back with defrauding patients, which was an interesting thing, and she clearly denied that on the witness stand. This much we know. They found that she defrauded investors, but not the patients. However, you can be assured, obviously it's a terrible thing if you're relying upon a technology that is being fraudulently presented to you and there's health concerns and risks that are at play. Certainly a good civil suit. Whether or not there's going to be any criminal liability as far as she is concerned, well, the jury's already voted on that, not guilty.
Yeah, and I just wanted to share a quick story with our audience. According to reporting here, Brittany Gold, she's one of the patients who took a stand during the trial, and she testified that because of the blood test that she took, it revealed that she was having a miscarriage when in fact she actually had a healthy pregnancy. And as a result of this false positive, she changed her medication routine, which could have harmed her fetus. Fortunately for her and her family, the baby came out healthy. But imagine if it was the opposite other way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all rely as best as we can upon what our doctors are telling us and what the lab reports. Look, as a lawyer, I'm very critical of these things. Even when everyone is operating at 100% truthfulness and efficacy, hospitals and human beings make mistakes. What you don't need to add on top of that is people that are defrauding you with regard to the ability of testing to work or medications to work. And this is a problem in this field, and this is why this case is so important. There has to be consumer protections. It's bad enough that you're ill. It's bad enough you need a doctor and you need medicine and you need tests. But if we have people that are falsifying the efficacy of these tests, then that is something that is obviously criminal and needs to be pursued very, very aggressively, because we have no ability to know that as patients. So that's why this case stands for something much bigger than just Elizabeth Holmes, Stephanie.
Yeah. And then also, too, got to be thankful for the whistleblowers that were working for Theranos who came out and explained everything that was going on behind the scenes. But Bob, we're out of time. Thank you so much.
Of course.